DIW, WD5ICV. see. I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
The band has begun. Does anyone need to use the repeater before we start the Groundhog Day edition of Skynet? So very quiet. This is November Tango 5 Tango Mike. My name is Tony, and I'll be your net control station for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subjects of astronomy, amateur radio, and space exploration. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the night and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with emergency or priority traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro words break, break, followed by their call sign. Is there anyone out there with emergency or priority traffic? This is, of course, a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. Tonight, that's me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of their transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-a-links, check-ins via Echolink, are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the Echolink node number 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And please remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of this or any amateur radio club to participate. Net is about 90 minutes long, and it is structured in many parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society events, a discussion topic of the evening, what you can see in the sky tonight, a featured constellation or objects, and a recent astronomical discoveries. We also will talk about space exploration and space history, as well as visible satellite passes, and if we have time, which we often don't, but we try hard, astronomical Q&A. There'll also be a 73 round if time permits. Again, all amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. We have lots of folks who are very welcome here and lots of presenters. You don't have to be a club member, and we'd love to have you. I'd like to start with round one. That is low power and short time check-ins. Anyone who would like to join us but who can't stay for long, this is your time to check in. I'm looking for low power and short time check-ins. Please come with your call sign phonetically, name, and the city you're transmitting from. This is K5KOB, Philip from Crandall, short time.
November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Allen. Short time.
I heard K5KLB, Philip and Crandall, and N5WOI, William and Allen. Do we have any other low power or short time check-ins? If so, please come now. Right, I'm glad everyone else can stay with us. I will take many rounds of check-ins during this net, but for now we're going to call for general check-ins. Anyone who'd like to join us over the airwaves, I'll take Echolink in just a minute. Any RF check-ins, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name, and location. November 5, Bravo, Bill in Irving.
Kilo Golf, 5 Papa, Mike in Richardson.
So Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel, Alpha, Chaz in Mesquite.
Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville.
Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo Echo 5, India, Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
So far, I've got N5BB, Bill and Irving, KG5P, Mike and Richardson, KF5JHA, Chaz in Mesquite, KC5OZT, Carolyn in Louisville, K5 KTX, Kelly in Quinlan, KF5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch, KE5ICX, Tom in Louisville, and WB5OZL, Brenda in DeSoto. Do we have any other stations who would like to check in tonight? Anyone who'd like to join us for Skynet, please come with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
Kilo 5, Alpha, November, Papa, Allen and Dallas.
Maybe everyone is busy getting their house clean for their Super Bowl party. I heard K5ANP, Allen and Dallas. Any other check-ins on the airwaves before I move on to Echolink? Please come now. Call sign phonetically, name and location, or else you're going to have to wait several minutes. Well, that's okay. When I came home yesterday evening from some ham radio business, I saw an awful lot of police on the road. I think this might be a special weekend. I don't know why. There's apparently some sort of sport where people knock each other over. I don't know. I don't get it. Do we have anyone else who'd like to check in? By Echolink. By Echolink this time. I'm watching the chat window. I'm listening to Echolink. I will do my best. Anyone who'd like to join us by Echolink, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location, or by chat. I'm watching.
This is November 5, Yankee Echo Oscar, Stephen, San Antonio.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J, near Weatherford.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy in Sherman.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Charlie Tango, David in Frisco.
This is Kilo Bravo 5, Papa Victor Tango, Ken in Hazlet.
John, I'm not quite sure where he is tonight. Norman is always a good guess. I've also got N5YEO, Stephen in San Antonio, KG5BZWJ near Weatherford, KF5PDS, Billy up in Sherman, Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Charlie Tango, David in Frisco, Kilo Bravo 5, Papa Victor Tango, Ken in Hazlet, and I think that's everyone. Let's see. Anyone else by any means? Any check-ins by any means? Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location, or by chat. I'll take your check in any way I can get it. You can send me a well-trained carrier pigeon, and I will happily read the message. Come now, call sign phonetically, name and location.
Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas. My carrier pigeon is caged, a little tired from a flight earlier. W5 EBB.
W5 EBB. David, I'm sad to hear your pigeon is tired out. Pigeons are kind of boring to most bird watchers, but the neatest thing, they are the only birds I've ever had keep up with me in level flight while I'm driving down the highway. Falcons can dive, but it's pigeons if you want speed in level flight. Okay, this is NT5TM, tonight's net control for Skynet. We'll take lots more rounds of check-ins during the net, so have no fear if you didn't make it in so far. For now, I'd like to ask if anyone has a general announcement. This can be a ham announcement, astronomical, space-related, or anything of general interest to licensed hams.
November 5 Bravo Bravo.
K5 KTX.
Right, very good. I've got N5BB and K5KTX. Bill, you were first, so please go ahead with your announcement.
Thank you, Tony. This is N5BB. The next meeting of, or I should say the February meeting of the National Space Society, North Texas chapter, will be on Sunday, February the 10th. That is a week from tomorrow. Standard location, which is Spring Creek Barbecue, the southwest corner of Beltline and Highway 183 in Irving. The meeting starts around 3:30 p.m. And I don't yet know what the meeting topic will be. 2 weeks from today, we will have Garland Skywarn training at the Performing Arts Center, I believe it's called, in Garland. This starts at 9 o'clock a.m. on Saturday, February the 16th, 2 weeks from today. Then 2 weeks after that, a month from today, on Saturday, March the 2nd, we will have the Irving Ham Fest. This will start at 8 o'clock a.m. in Irving, the same location we've had it in for a number of years. The Betcha Bingo at the corner of Story Road and Highway 356, Irving Boulevard, in Irving. That's all I got for now in 5BB.
That's a great set of announcements. The National Space Society meeting, the Garland Skywarn class, and the Irving Ham Fest. Does anyone need any fills on those items? That was quite a lot of information. Does anyone need any fills?
Recheck WB50ZL.
Go ahead.
The National Space Society meeting is going to have a guest speaker, astronaut Don Thomas. He was a four-time shuttle, whatever. I don't know what he did, but he flew on 4 shuttle missions, including STS-170, the so-called Woodpecker mission. And anyway, the meeting is free. They like visitors. I don't know if they're going to have a big crowd. You might want to get there a little early. They do have a Facebook page. You can look up information there. I get notices from them on Facebook, so you might think about that too. Those of you who are interested in their programs. Okay, that's it. WB50ZL.
KG5P.
also, well, you know Aaron and I love birds, so we're going to have to learn more about the woodpecker mission. KG5P, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Yeah, I met Don Thomas. He was at the Texas Star Party a couple of years ago, and he's really an interesting speaker. And he even looked through my telescope. But if you get a chance to see him, gives a really interesting talk. Back to that to KG5P.
Okay, awesome. And there might have been a double there. Was there someone else trying to comment? If so, please come now with your call sign phonetically.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
Revenge of the Bills. Bill, go ahead.
I think Brenda for jumping in. I knew that. I just had forgotten. I don't know why I forgot. Wasn't thinking clearly. Yes, Don Thomas will be there, National Shuttle astronaut. And he will also be signing his book, which is called, I don't know. Anyway, he'll autograph his book, and it'll be there, first come, first served. And he'll be selling it, I guess. If anybody has any questions about that, feel free to contact me. This is November 5. Bravo, Bravo.
Okay, very good. This is something that sounds like a really exciting meeting with a great guest for the next National Space Society meeting on February 10th. Having an astronaut there with a book signing too sounds pretty good. Before we move on to Kelly's announcement, does anyone else have any questions or comments about the National Space Society meeting on February 10th? I'm going to be coming back from a long trip, and I might have to try to make it anyway because it sounds pretty good. K5KTX, Kelly, please go ahead.
Thank you, Tony. This is K5KTX, and real quick before my announcement, I just want to make one correction to what Mike said. It was Don Pettit that was our keynote speaker 2 years ago at the Texas Star Party, not Don Thomas. But about my announcement, this is hot off the press. You may have heard me talk about a young lady from the war-torn country of Kosovo. Her name is Pranvera Haisini, who also was a keynote speaker at TSP, Texas Star Party, 2 years ago. And she's also was a speaker at the Texas Astronomical Society last year. And she has been sitting in front of a TV for the last 14 hours today. She's a 23-year-old who began an astronomy outreach organization in her country. They have nothing scientific in the country at all. And she's been working around the clock for a long time with a number of people, including Celestron and some other people, to try to build the very first observatory and planetarium in her country. And it was up for the budget today, so just a couple of hours ago, they finally voted for it. It was a vote of 67-0 with one abstaining. And so they are going to get their very first observatory and planetarium, and this is very, very exciting for that country. They've been through so much over the last 20 years or so, and it's just amazing what this young lady has done for the last couple of years, but lots to look forward to for them. So that was my announcement, and this is K5KTX.
K5P.
That's just awesome. It makes me think about how we take planetariums for granted. We can go to a program anytime we want to. Having a new one built with an observatory for people to learn about the sky sounds like a really great accomplishment, and I hope it really promotes the knowledge of science among all the people of Kosovo. KG5P. Excuse me, that I dropped out there. KG5P, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Yeah, thanks for the correction, Kelly. I realized as soon as I said that, I had the guys had the wrong dial, but yeah, Don Pettit was the one that was at Texas Star Party, who also has has a PhD in chemical engineering, but that's a different guy, but they're still active. Don Pettit is still an active astronaut. So thanks for the correction, KG5P.
Well, it makes me think that Dons are great astronauts. Maybe we need to see if W9VE has applied to be an astronaut. That would be pretty neat, and I know he'd share the experiences very well. This is... Hey, I apologize. This microphone keeps just randomly dropping me out. This... Okay, this is NT5T. Would anyone else like to join us? Please come now with your call sign for... Hey, everybody stand by. I'm going to go get another radio. NT5T.
This is KE5ICX. I'll play alternate net control station while Tony gets his radio, a replacement radio. Boy, we've all had that happen a few times. I'll take additional check-ins if you'd like to come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. I'll add you to the list, and then I'll inform Tony when he gets back. This is KE5ICX with Skynet. And we'd like to check in. Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Victor Bravo, David and Carrollton. Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James Carrollton.
I didn't get my ear completely tuned in. I've got Kilo Golf 5 Zulu Victor Bravo. I think it's David. Could you give me, I'll need some fills. Did I get your name right and where you're transmitting from?
You did get the Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Victor Bravo correct. I am David, and I am transmitting from Carrollton.
And I lost, I got the first two parts, and name, one more time where you're transmitting from. I'm turning my radio up to 11.
There's David and Carrollton.
Excellent. David in Carrollton. Next station I got, Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton as well. Anyone else who'd like to check in, please come now.
Kilowatt Golf 5, Papa Kilo X-ray in Dallas, Texas.
November 5, Alpha Bravo Alpha, Andre in Dallas via Echolink, recheck.
Hey, I've got KG5, Papa Kilo X-ray in Dallas. Could I get your name, please?
The name here is Max, Mike Alpha X-ray, KG5 to KX.
KX, Max in Dallas, and I've got N5ABA, Andre in Dallas. You had a recheck? Go ahead with your recheck.
Just wanted to make sure this was working. I tried a couple times earlier and did not succeed. N5 ABA.
Okay, Andre, you're coming through fine. Your signal is fine over on Echo Link. A little bit of background noise, but nothing that we can't deal with. So I have you checked in. Okay, NT5TM. Tony, are you back?
Yes, I am. The new Kenwood radio, it seems like it won't transmit for more than a few seconds continuously, so it might be going back to the store. So I've fallen back to a tried and trusty Yaesu, and hopefully I can hold the repeater and continue on as net control. I did copy KG5Z Victor Bravo, KJ Kilo Golf 5 Whiskey Victor Lima, Kilo Golf 5 Papa Kilo X-Ray, and November 5 Alpha Bravo Alpha. Andre, I'm really glad you really rechecked because I did not have you on my earlier check-in list.
KG5ZYW, I'm curious what net this is.
Golf 5 Zulu Yankee Whiskey. This is, I have to say it loudly, I apologize, Skynet. This is a weekly net. We meet every Saturday at 9 p.m. to talk about astronomy and space exploration and space history and science and lots of other cool stuff. Could I check you in? Could I get your name and the city you operate from?
Yeah, this is Marla from Irving, Texas. I know Tom. I heard him back there a minute ago.
Right, thank you for checking in from Irving. Yes, Tom is the inventor of this net, and I have recently become privileged to be net control on the first Saturday of each month. Having a couple of technical challenges tonight, but I'm going to keep trying to do my best. So thank you very much for checking in. This is Tony, NT5TM, and I'm going to just mention a couple of other nets. The AMSAT group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, if you have Echolink installed and registered, you can find this net under Groups and AMSAT. There is also a live audio link available from amsatnet.com, and this net is controlled out of Houston, Texas. I read that kind of awkwardly. That was the first net. The second net is the Dallas-Fort Worth AMSAT net. If you like amateur radio satellites, this is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington Club repeater, 147.140 megahertz. Like this one, it's a PL tone of 110.9. We have a lot of nets, and this is a very full weekend. We have a 10:30 Afterglow movie discussion tonight. Then we have meeting on the air tomorrow at 7, a Racy's training net tomorrow on this repeater at 8, Ham Fixin's net Monday at 7 p.m., and a club meeting this coming Tuesday. We're going to be talking about fox hunting. The board meeting is at 6 p.m. The general meeting is at 7 p.m. Both are free and open to the public. Both take place in the 3rd floor community room at the Dallas Medical Center, the northeast corner of Webb Chapel and LBJ. We're in the main hospital building. Parking is free and convenient. I know the name hospital is scary, but they really do have close-up parking, and it really is free. We're in the 3rd floor community room of the main hospital building at 7 p.m. this coming Tuesday. One of our traditional nets on this repeater is the National Traffic System net. This is not a club net. It is sponsored by the National Traffic System. We pass messages all around the country as a free service. It's 6:30 p.m. every single day of the year right here on this repeater, and all are welcome. Now, earlier I mentioned our Afterglow net at 10:30, and I never can do the movie justice, so this is the part where Net Control calls on Tom, KE5ICX, my alternate Net Control, the man who was quick on the microphone and saved me when my radio died. Tom, would you like to talk about the Afterglow movie?
Thank you, Tony. You know I live for this one moment, my 30 seconds in history. Here we go. The scientists looked quizzically through the telescope. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The outsider, a planet, unimaginatively named by nerds, meaning outside of Earth, continued doing illegal things. making lane changes without signaling, exceeding the planetary speed limit, doing donuts in the local parking lot, and finally loitering at the local mall. Dr. Fred Steele was the first to speak. This ends now. Get me that spare spaceship we captured from the Martian invasion in '59. We're going up there and to stop this planet's very bad behavior. So join us for the next after-school movie, Battle of the Planets from 1961, tonight at 10:30. Even though you didn't see it, you'll wish you hadn't. So join us. This is KE5ICX. Back to net.
Thank you very much, Tom. This is NT5TM, net control for tonight's DARC Skynet, but of course, everyone is welcome. Do we have anyone else who'd like to join us? Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
This is Kilo Fox 5, Victor Quebec Hotel, Tom and Mesquite.
Hello, Fox 5 something Quebec Hotel, Tom and Mesquite. Could I get your complete call?
My full call is Kilo Fox 5, Victor Quebec Hotel.
All right, thank you. I have Kilo Foxtrot 5, Victor Quebec Hotel, and Kilo Echo 5, Juliet India Tango, Randy with no mic but listening from Louisville. And I also see a message I should add, Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton. Oh, I have him. I have him in slot 20, in fact. I've got Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton. Thank you for checking in, James. Hey, do we have anyone with news about Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, especially where and when you can look through a telescope? There's been a lot of heavy fog today. I did not expect it to be so overcast. I thought it was going to clear up sometime in the early afternoon. So I'm betting tonight's Star Party has been canceled. But if anyone has news about tonight's Star Party or the next TAS monthly meeting, please come now with your call sign phonetically.
Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha.
Yeah, I've got KF5JHA. Chaz, I'll call on you in just a second. I also have an Echolink relay for slot 26. Kilo 5, Kilo Oscar Bravo. Philip checking in on the Facebook stream. Chaz, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone on the net. I just want to let you know about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. They meet on the fourth Friday of each month, except November they meet on the Friday before Thanksgiving, and in December we usually have some sort of holiday event instead. So for 10 months out of the year we meet on the fourth Friday of the month at the University of Texas at Dallas. month, every Saturday of the month, we have a stargazing party, and tonight would have been at Spring Park in Garland, but because of the clouds, that was canceled. Frisco Star Party is on the second Saturday of the month. Williams Park in Cedar Hill is the third Saturday, and the Shores Park in Rockwall is the fourth Saturday. Usually start right around dark and last for a couple of hours. We don't have an observing star party right now on the fifth Saturdays when they occur, which is about once every quarter. But we're thinking of having sort of a newcomers beginning star party sometime, and it could fall on that date. I think that's it, unless somebody else has a question about the Texas Astronomical Society. This is KF5JHA.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Phil, and I really do appreciate that information. The TAS is a great organization which a lot of hams are members of. There's a wonderful crossover between amateur astronomy and amateur radio. Does anyone have any questions? If so, please come now. Right. Do we have anyone with news about National Space Society events and activities? Anyone with news about the National Space Society that wasn't covered already? I know we had some, but this is the official part of the program. Please come now with your call sign phonetically. This is NT5TM. I know we did cover that pretty thoroughly earlier. I just wanted to be sure. Before I begin talking for an extended period of time, do we have anyone else who'd like to join us? Anyone who'd like to check in? Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. This is NT5TM for the Saturday Night Skynet. This is, in space history terms, a terrible week. Thanks to the loss of Apollo 1 and Challenger in Columbia in late January and early February, this is perhaps the worst week in all of space history for American citizens. NASA holds an annual day of remembrance to honor fallen astronauts, including those lost in those tragedies, each January, and it would have been on January 31st, but because many NASA employees were furloughed and are just now getting back to work, that Day of Remembrance has been postponed and not officially rescheduled. So tonight I'll talk about some of those who have lost their lives in trying to explore the final frontier, and in future presentations I'll talk about what we can learn from some of these tragedies. We'll talk about the why and the how later, but tonight I'd like to talk about the who and the what. Tonight I'd like to especially remember all the cosmonauts and astronauts whose name appear on the memorial down in Houston. Valentin Bondarenko, Theodore Freeman, Elliot C., Charles Bassett, Gus Grissom, Ed White, Roger Chaffee, Vladimir Komarov, Michael Adams, Clifton Williams, Robert Henry Lawrence Jr., Georgy Dublovsky, Viktor Patsiev, Vladislav Volkov, Gregory Jarvis, Krister McAuliffe, Ronald McNair, Ellison Onizuka, Judith Resnick, Michael Smith, Dick Scobie, Sergei Vazovakov, Rick Husband, William McCool, Michael Anderson, David Brown, Kapana Chawla, Laurel Clark, Ilian Ramon. A couple of names who don't appear on the memorial, I'll explain them in a second, Jules Meyer Jr., Charles Krennic, and Michael Asbury. Mr. Meyer and Mr. Krennic were not astronauts or astronaut candidates, and nor did they die in a training accident. They were a helicopter pilot and an aviation accident specialist
who were engaged in the recovery of Columbia debris in East Texas when their helicopter lost power at an altitude too low to auto-rotate, and they were both killed when that helicopter crashed into a bayou. Exploration is difficult and costly, and I'd like to remember some of these accidents tonight, even if NASA can't celebrate its Day of Remembrance because of procedural difficulties. We can. Valentin Bondarenko was a Soviet cosmonaut who is the first known space-related fatality. He was engaged in a 15-day endurance experiment in an altitude chamber that had a high oxygen content atmosphere. He was training to fly on the Vostok spacecraft, the same one that Gagarin flew on, when he accidentally dropped an alcohol-soaked cotton ball onto a hot plate. He'd been pulling electromagnetic sensors off of his chest for an electrocardiogram, and he wanted to clean the adhesive off with alcohol. The cotton balls he was using fell into the hot plate and ignited immediately and started a flash fire. He suffered third-degree burns over most of his body and all of his face, and he died in a hospital 16 hours later. His death was kept a careful secret. He simply disappeared from news articles and magazines. His death began rumors that there had been failed space launches by the Soviet Union that were being covered up. It was not explained or revealed until 1980, which was rather tragic because it might have served to underscore the dangers of fires in oxygen environments. The next tragedy, the first one that was known in the public press, happened on January 27, 1967. This was the death of the Apollo 1 crew in training. They were engaged in what was called a plugs-out test of the Apollo command module. It was not thought to be dangerous because all the pyrotechnic igniters had been removed from the spacecraft. But after a few cryptic words, fire in the capsule, the entire space capsule was consumed in flames and could not be opened by ground support personnel. Apollo 1 space capsule was a Block 1 Apollo capsule. It was meant to serve for testing only. It had no docking port. And it was, well, a difficult piece of work. Both NASA and the contractor were constantly modifying the capsule to the point where the simulator bore very little resemblance to it. Gus Grissom even hung a lemon on the simulator to underscore the fact that he didn't think it was useful for training. Many of the wires were silver-plated, and these silver-plated wires would spontaneously cause combustion if they came in contact with the ethylene glycol coolant from the environmental control system. This control system had many soldered pipes that got cracks and leaked. Additionally, the spacecraft had many classes and types of combustible material, including Velcro, spread so liberally around the crew compartment it was described as being like carpeting. The fire was awful, escape was not possible, but without the Apollo 1 loss, we would probably not have made it to the moon. The loss of Apollo 1 underscored all sorts of technical problems with the Apollo program. A socket wrench socket was even found in the capsule. The poor change control, the poor engineering decision-making, the environmental control problems, the use of solder joints when crimped or welded ones should have been used, all had to be eliminated before we could reach the moon. Famous space tragedy was Soyuz 1. This led to the death of cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov, sometimes known as the man who fell from space. Yuri Gagarin had tried to bump him from this flight, hoping that if he could only take over command of the flight, the Soviet authorities would not allow it to go forward, because surely they would not risk Gagarin, who was very famous, on the flight of a capsule that was widely known to be incomplete and dysfunctional. Previous Soyuz launch attempts had all ended in disaster and destruction of the launch pad. when electrical faults caused mistaken ignition of the launch escape rocket or ignition of the fourth stage of the Soyuz rocket. Instead, the authorities decided to proceed with the rocket. Its parachute system failed, and Komarov fell to Earth ballistically with no recovery efforts, with no retardation of his velocity, causing his death. TM. The only space explorers known to have died in space rather than during re-entry or on the ground were the crew of Soyuz 11. These astronauts had completed a very successful mission on the world's first operational space station, Soyuz 1. Salute. It means the same thing in Russian as it does in English. Salute. Hello. It was a rush program designed to beat the American Skylab into orbit. When the crew first tried to board the station, they were met by an unbreathable, smoky and burned atmosphere. They had to go back to their capsule and wait for the fumes to dissipate. A fire broke out on day 11 of their 16-day stay, causing mission controllers to worry about abandoning the mission. But they persevered and conducted a number of experiments with photography of space and the Earth, and left the station thinking that they would return to a hero's welcome for each of them. Fortunately, a valve controlling an oxygen line between their re-entry module and their service module, Soyuz capsules were much like Apollo or Gemini capsules with a separate service module, failed to close when they separated from this module just before re-entry. It vented the capsule's atmosphere into space. Mark of poor quality in engineering planning, similar to Apollo 1, cosmonaut Alexei Leonov, who was originally scheduled to command this mission, had advised the crew to close these valves by hand before automatic service module jettison, because the automatic closure mechanisms were unreliable. But this didn't make it into the mission plan. It didn't become official guidance, and the crew was killed by asphyxiation. It was a piece of world news and really disappointing and not something to be happy about. STS-51L, the flight of Challenger, was also a great tragedy. I remember that I was in reading class in 6th grade, and the principal interrupted class using the PA system, and this was never done. Students were recruited as runners to carry messages, so that this principal wouldn't have to use the PA system because it stopped teachers from teaching. But he did stop everyone and asked everyone to observe a minute of silence because the launch had resulted in the loss of all 7 astronauts in a great and startling accident in our space shuttle program. Actually, the accident was caused by launching in very cold weather. A rubber O-ring, a giant washer meant to seal the joint between parts of a solid rocket booster, failed in the cold and let hot gases escape. It later turned out, and we'll discuss this in a future net, that this sort of thing had been happening for some time, and NASA staff had simply gotten used to it and didn't take it particularly seriously. Ken Iliff, a former NASA chief scientist who worked on the space shuttle program since the very first mission and had also been a scientist on the X-15 program, stated that it was violating mission rules that was the primary cause of the Challenger accident. This is NT5TM. The final sad event I'd like to remind us of tonight was STS-107, the final flight of Space Shuttle Columbia. On February 1st, 2003, Space Shuttle Columbia, like Soyuz 11, was re-entering after a very successful mission, conducting science in outer space and expanding the frontiers of human knowledge. But all 7 crew members were killed. During the launch of Columbia, a piece of foam insulation had broken off the external tank and struck the reinforced carbon-carbon leading edge of the left wing of the orbiter. This had been happening for some time. Pieces of foam would break off and strike the shuttle. It would usually just kind of tear off a few tiles, and the engineers had gotten used to it. Although some engineers did raise red flags and try to get more information, it was generally felt that this was not particularly severe. It was just an issue that would have to be addressed when they refurbished the orbiter for the next flight. Unfortunately, the judgment about this risk was wrong. It was lousy, and it led to the entry of superhot plasma into the left wing of the space shuttle and the breakup of the vehicle. It did not explode. It was ripped apart by aerodynamic forces, and again, resulted in the loss of not only the entire crew, but two military officers on the ground who were engaged in recovering crew remains. Well, I had very vivid memories of the Challenger accident. Aaron's parents were waiting in Florida to hear the sonic booms of the shuttle approaching its landing strip at Kennedy Space Center, and those sonic booms simply never arrived. It was truly a very bad day. I've been talking for quite some time. This is NT5TM. We've had a very serious topic here, but I know there might be more folks who'd like to check in. Anyone who'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign phonetically, name, and location. All right, we do have some notes scheduled from Chaz, KF5JHA. Chaz, if you'd like to go ahead, please do so.
Good evening, the entire net. Thank you, Tony. I guess this is What's Up. Is that what you wanted me to do right now, Tony?
Yes. I saw that in the script and didn't know if that was the actual title. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Once again, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. Actually, my degree is in astrophysics, and I work at Brookhaven College. So over the last week, it's been mostly cloudy, but on Tuesday, January the 29th, it was clear enough in the early morning hours for me to get a look at, from right to left, the bright star Antares, the Moon, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn in the southeastern sky. That was about 6:30 in the morning. And on Wednesday evening, it was clear for a few hours for some of the astronomy students at Brookhaven to get their first view of the night sky for the semester. What was their favorite thing to see? It was actually a satellite, Cosmos 2227, and it was a rocket body. It was bright enough to easily see from, even though we were very close to 635 and the Galleria, it went diagonally right through the constellation of Orion. This time of year to see satellites in the sky, actually in the evening sky, is in the spring from April through about June. The orientation of the sun and its setting angle with respect to the horizon allows for a long time for satellites to catch the sunlight and reflect that sunlight back down to us while we're in darkness. So this morning, on February the 2nd, if it had been clear instead of foggy, is what Tony was telling you, the thin, waning crescent moon would have been low in the southeastern sky just below the planet Saturn. About Saturn and to the right, a little bit up and south, would be the brightest thing in the sky other than the sun and moon that you could see. That was the planet Venus. Venus actually goes through phases, just like our moon, and right now it looks like a miniature third-quarter moon through binoculars or a telescope. Above Venus and more to the right, you could have found the biggest planet, Jupiter. It's not nearly as bright as Venus, but even though through a small telescope you can spot Jupiter's four biggest moons, the Galilean moons, named after and in honor of Galileo. Galileo was given credit not for the invention of the telescope, but for rather using the telescope to observe the sky and draw what he saw. Galileo drew Jupiter's 4 biggest moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, on different nights and at different times. He realized that they were moons going around Jupiter, just like our moon orbits the Earth. Over the next month or so, you'll be able to see 3 planets in the early morning sky: Saturn, Venus, and Jupiter, and they'll be in the southeastern morning sky. Now, if you want to see one more planet in the early morning, look down at your feet. I thought I could get a laugh out of that one anyway. On February the 4th, the moon is at new phase. New phase is when the moon is in between the Earth and the Sun, and so it's not visible to us since the sunlit side of the moon is facing away from the Earth. On February the 5th, the moon will be at apogee with a distance from the Earth of 406,556 kilometers. Apogee is the point on the moon's orbit which is furthest from the Earth. Perigee is when it is closest, and that's going to happen in a couple of weeks. Also, in the evening of February the 5th, at around 6:30 p.m., you may get a glimpse of a very thin, waxing crescent moon in the southwestern sky. It's more west than south. Make sure you have a clear, low western horizon. By the next evening, on February the 6th, you should be able to easily pick out the crescent moon in the western evening sky. On the night, February the 9th and the 10th, the moon will be passing by the planet Mars in the evening sky. February the 12th, the moon is at its first quarter phase, and on February the 13th, the moon will be in the middle of the face of Taurus the Bull, which is really a star cluster, and it's called the Hyades. I'll talk more about this on February 13th event next week, because there'll be occultations, and I'll talk more about the star clusters next week on Skynet. But one more thing to look for on February the 13th will be the planet Mercury, just peeking above the western horizon as twilight happens. You'll need to look really carefully, and it won't be very bright, but Mercury will be remaining in the low western evening sky through the first part of March. Tomorrow is February 3rd, Super Bowl football game day. New England Patriots and the LA Rams are playing, but if it is clear on Super Bowl Sunday evening, you can find Aries the Ram in the evening sky. First, find the pale orange-colored Mars high in the western sky. Just to the right of Mars, you'll be able to find the brightest star in the constellation of Aries, called Hamel. Hamel is the same magnitude as Polaris, the North Star. You might see one other star in Aries while viewing from the city. Just below Hamel, about half a magnitude fainter, is Sheraton. The other stars in Aries are just too faint to see from most locations in the DFW Metroplex. I mentioned that there's a Super Bowl football game being played in Atlanta on Sunday. The real Super Bowl is the Big Dipper in the northeastern sky right now. The Big Dipper is an asterism. An asterism is not a constellation of stars, but rather a group of stars that look like something and is usually only a part of a constellation. For me, the Big Dipper looks like a cooking pan with a long handle. In the evening sky, the Big Dipper is oriented with its bowl rising above its handle. It looks kind of funny to me with the Big Dipper standing on its handle right now. The Big Dipper is part of the constellation called Ursa Major, the Big Bear. Mascot of where I work, Brookhaven College, is a bear. I just had to mention that. Go Bears. Maybe in the future episodes of Was Up, I can talk about why the Big Bear has such a long tail. But right now, that tail is too long to tell tonight. Okay, so I just laugh at my own jokes. So if it is clear at halftime of Super Bowl football game, Stretch your legs, go outside, find Mars, find Aries, and the real Super Bowl, the Big Dipper in the sky. This is KF5, JHH, and that's all for this week's What Is Up? Back to net control, Tony. Thank you. And applause appropriate now if everyone wants to do that.
Guys, this is NT5TM. Does anyone have any questions about what's up tonight? Well, thank you again. Before we move into the featured constellation, and I do know I ran very long there, and I do apologize for that. I was in a very serious mood. I know I put everyone's schedule off a bit this evening. Does anyone else want to check in? Anyone who'd like to join us, please come out with your call sign phonetically, name and location. All right, let's move ahead. Carolyn, KC5OZT, you're up next with the featured constellation of the evening.
Thank you. This is KC5OZT, and tonight's constellation is Canis Major, the Great Dog. It's depicted as a dog pursuing the hare lepus that we discussed, and it was described as a dog with a blazing face because it appears to hold Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, in its jaw. And speaking of the stars, well, obviously the major one is Sirius, and it's actually a binary, Sirius A and B, known as the dog star, the brightest star in the sky, and the fifth nearest star to the sun. And like I say, it is a binary. The main one, magnitude negative 1.42. And it is only 8.6 light years away. And the brighter component, Sirius A, is a white main sequence star, and it has a companion, Sirius B, is a white dwarf, which, if you look to the lower left of the picture, you can see a little tiny dot. But they orbit each other every 50 years, and the distance varies between 8.1 and 31.5 AU, and the companion isn't visible to the naked eye. Sirius A is about twice the mass of the sun, and B is almost equal to the sun. But these were known as the dog stars, and they rose just before sunrise during the hottest summer period in the Greek days, so they were called the dog days. And the Greeks and Romans believed this was responsible for the summer heat. Egypt, Sirius marked the flooding of the Nile. It rose with the sun just before the flooding and the summer solstice, so it was famous for that. And it is part of what's known as the winter circle, or the winter hexagon, along with Rigel and Orion, Aldebaran and Taurus, Capella and Auriga, Pollux and Castor and Gemini, and Procyon and Canis Minor. And they make this prominent asterism between December and March. The second brightest star is Adhara, A-D-H-A-R-A. It's also a binary, and magnitude 1.5, and the primary is known as one of the most brightest ultraviolet sources in the sky. And about 4.7 million years ago, it was the brightest star in the sky, only 34 light years away, and had a magnitude of negative 3.99. No other star's ever been as bright since, or one expected to be. The third star is Tau. It's Majoris, and it's an eclipsing binary star. It's the brightest star of a nice open cluster, 2362. And the cluster is called the Tau Canis Major Cluster. So it's a very beautiful sight. Now moving on to some deep sky objects. Of course, the most famous one is probably M41, an open cluster, magnitude 4.5, and it's only about 4 degrees south of Sirius, making it easy to find. And it contains about 100 stars, with the brightest ones being a K-type giant near the center of the cluster, and it contains several other red giants. Another object is actually a dwarf galaxy known as the Canis Major Dwarf Galaxy. It's a regular galaxy of the elliptical, and it's believed to be the nearest neighboring galaxy to our solar system, about 25,000 light years away. Be about 1 billion stars and a bunch of red giants, and it was first discovered in 2003. It's difficult to observe because it's behind the plane of the Milky Way and obscured by the dust and gas. There are a number of globular clusters associated with it, thought to be the remnants of the galaxy's cluster system before it started getting pulled apart and swallowed into the Milky Way. And we have NGC 2359. This is known as Thor Helmet. And this is an emission nebula, about 30 light years in size, about 15,000 light years away. It's formed around what's called a Wolf-Rayet star. It's an extremely hot giant about to explode as a supernova. And there is also a nice open cluster nearby, NGC 2360, known as, it was named for Caroline Herschel. A spectacular collision of galaxies. When they get together, there's a chance of a spectacular light show, and this is the case with NGC 2207 and IC 2163. colliding spiral galaxies about 80 million light years away. And 4 supernovae have been observed in them in recent decades, 1978, set in 1999, 2003, and 2013. So this is worth watching, keeping an eye on. Out of the pictures, one shows it in just normal light, and one shows it in pinkish light. But these galaxies are in the process of tidal stripping, with the larger galaxy pulling the stars and other material from the smaller one. And so they make a very beautiful sight. So take a look through this constellation, and you'll find a lot to enjoy. So unless there's any questions, I'll turn it back to you, Tony. KC50ZT.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. This is NT5TM. Do we have anyone else who'd like to join us? Anyone who'd like to check in? Please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location. And you're also welcome to recheck if you have a question for Carolyn about her constellation of the evening. All right, well, thank you very much. I really do enjoy the constellation of the evening. Next up is Brenda with recent astronomical discoveries. Brenda, WB5OZL, please go ahead.
Thanks, Tony. This is WB5OZL. I have an article entitled Hubble Fortuitously Discovers a New Galaxy in the Cosmic Neighborhood. Astronomers using the NASA ESA Hubble Space Telescope to study some of the oldest and faintest stars in the globular cluster NGC 6752 have made an unexpected finding. They discovered a dwarf galaxy in our cosmic backyard, only 30 million light years away. The finding is reported in the journal Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society Letters. An international team of astronomers recently used the NASA ESA Hubble Space Telescope to study white dwarf stars within the globular cluster NGC 6752. The aim of their observations was to use these stars to measure the age of the globular cluster, but in the process they made an unexpected discovery. In the outer fringes of the area observed with Hubble's advanced camera for surveys, a compact collection of stars was visible. After careful analysis of their brightnesses and temperatures, the astronomers concluded that these stars did not belong to the cluster, which is part of the Milky Way, but rather they are millions of light years more distant. Our newly discovered cosmic neighbor, nicknamed Beidin 1 by the astronomers, is a modestly sized, elongated galaxy. It measures only around 3,000 light years and is at its greatest extent a fraction of the size of the Milky Way. Not only is it tiny, but it's also incredibly faint. These properties led astronomers to classify it as a dwarf spheroidal galaxy. Dwarf spheroidal galaxies are defined by their small size, low luminosity, lack of dust, and old stellar populations. 36 galaxies of this type are already known to exist in the local group of galaxies, 22 of which are satellite galaxies of the Milky Way. While dwarf spheroidal galaxies are not uncommon, Beidin 1 has some notable features. Not only is it one of just a few dwarf spheroidals that have a well-established distance, but it is also extremely isolated. It lies about 30 million light years from the Milky Way and 2 million light years from the nearest plausible large galaxy host, NGC 6744. This makes it possibly the most isolated small dwarf galaxy discovered to date. From the properties of its stars, astronomers were able to infer that the galaxy is around 13 billion years old, nearly as old as the universe itself. Because of its isolation, which resulted in hardly any interaction with other galaxies, and its age, Bean 1 is the astronomical equivalent of a living fossil from the early universe. The discovery of Bean 1 was a truly serendipitous find. Very few Hubble images allow such faint objects to be seen, and they cover only a small area of the sky. Future telescopes with a large field of view, such as the WFIRST telescope, will have cameras covering a much larger area of the sky and may find many more of these galactic neighbors. We're really short on time, so I'm going to stop there. That's all of that article, but I won't read the second one. This is from ScienceDaily.com. Back to net. This is Debbie B5OZL.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It was kind of funny because here I was furiously deleting from my next section of the net too, because I talked so long earlier. This is NT5TM for the Saturday Night Skynet. Thank you, Brenda, for sharing those discoveries, and following up on Science Daily would be a great idea for anyone who is listening. Do we have anyone else who'd like to join us? Anyone who'd like to check in? Please come out with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
EBB recheck with a comment about space disasters if there's time at the end. W5 EBB.
Well, I will try to make some open time here at the end because we might have memories that people want to share, or your comment or other comments, all of which are good and proper. So thank you. I have you down on my list, and I will try to come back to you in just a second here. Let's see. I'm going to cut most of my space history presentation because, in fact, the vast majority of it is a recap of some of the things that happened in the past week of space history, which we have talked about. There are just a couple of items I'd like to mention about. One was the launch of a probe known as Ranger 6. If you'd like to read about overcoming difficulties with automated probes, the Ranger program is a great choice. The first 6 of them all failed miserably in one way or another. They were meant to photograph the moon and help validate the choice of lunar module design and Apollo landing strategy. And they did all sorts of horrible things. They crashed horrifically into the sea. They failed to leave orbit. Ranger 6 reached the moon, but the cameras never turned on. So if you'd like to learn about the management at JPL having to reorganize itself, learning more about the Ranger program is a great choice. On January 31st, 1971, Apollo 14 was launched. Unlike many things, particularly Apollo 13, this was an unqualified success. Alan Shepard got to hit golf balls on the moon. He brought along a little driver head that he could strap to a sample collection scoop and use it as a golf club. He and Stu Rusa and Edgar Mitchell orbited or landed on the moon, made a great recovery from the crisis of Apollo 13, and collected rocks from the Fra Mauro highlands that Apollo 13 had intended to land at. Many of you who have attended events at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, January 31st is also a fun day because it's the birthday of Mary Wallace Wally Funk. She was an American pilot instructor, commercial air transport pilot, and NTSB flight safety investigator. One little computer problem here. I'll be right back.
I don't quite understand what happened there, but I'll do my best. She was a very interesting person. We had a great chance to hear her speak. She was one of the Mercury 13 astronauts. Well, not quite astronauts. These were women who were selected with private sponsorship to undergo the same tests and examinations that the Mercury 7 astronauts did, just to prove that women were physically capable of spaceflight, which was widely disbelieved. Even John Glenn said that it was contrary to our social order. In achieving spaceflight for themselves, as I think I mentioned last week, they did help lead the first woman astronaut. Because Soviet observers noticed that we seemed to be preparing women for spaceflight, they decided to get there first, and did with cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova. So in January, I'm trying to find the year, and again, unfortunately, I'm having some computer difficulties here. America launched its first successful satellite, Explorer 1. Explorer 1 was not meant to be America's first satellite, and for a time it was even hidden in the trunk of an engineer's car. The American spaceflight authorities wanted to pursue an apparently more civilian project, which ironically was managed by the U.S. Navy, Project Vanguard. Unfortunately, Vanguard suffered from a very large number of booster failures because they were trying to launch a completely new multi-stage rocket, whereas the Army Ballistic Missile Agency was simply modifying a Redstone into a launcher known as Juno 1. This modified Redstone, which is called the Jupiter C and then Juno 1, was very successful. They managed to get the satellite out of someone's trunk, ready for launch into a suitable orbit in 84 days. So Explorer 1 was preceded by both Sputnik 1 and Sputnik 2. It was a more successful scientific satellite than either. Its radiation detector led to the discovery of the Van Allen radiation belts. This is NT5TM. I think that's all I want to do for a truncated This Week in Space History. We do have an echoing question for Kelly, K5KTX. Kelly, K5KTX. Okay, Chaz says Kelly is still in the air and is now looking up information on how to donate to the Kosovo Observatory. So Kelly, if you have a comment anytime before or after we close the net, I think there are several people listening. So first I'll just call for a final round of check-ins. This is the final open call for check-ins. After this, we're going to just do comments and thoughts from checked-in members. Anyone who'd like to check into Skynet, this is the final call. Final call, so please come now with your call sign phonetically, name and location.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Tango Hotel Bravo, Brent and Henrietta.
That's KF5THB, Rick and Henrietta. Thank you very much. Anyone else? We'll all go for W5EBB. David, if you want to go ahead, and then I'll call on Kelly, K5KTX, and then I'll call for final thoughts from anyone else participating tonight. W5EBB, please go ahead.
All right, thanks, Tony. Yeah, I just wanted to share my memory of the Challenger disaster. I was at Texas A&M in a Statistics 211 class, and the professor told us of the disaster. And, you know, those unpleasant, unhappy memories tend to get etched indelibly in your memories, and that was a very vivid one. And, of course, like many, I followed the story even years after, and, You know, it came down very much to kind of I don't know, the attitude of NASA was generally before prove that it's safe to launch, but it had transformed to prove that it's unsafe to launch. Specifically, you know, the Morton Fire Call engineers, one in particular named Boyce Jolie, I think, but several Morton Fire Call engineers said it was unsafe to launch that day. The temperature was 30, and NASA, on the other hand, based on their recommendations, said, quote, "I'm appalled by your recommendations," and one NASA manager said, "My God, Fire Call, when do you want me to launch? Next April?" So, you know, a lot of things changed, but the fact is, out of 135 shuttle missions, 2 disasters, loss of crew, that puts a single event probability of 1.5% of a catastrophic failure. And the attitude, though, was, well, we've had so many strings of successful launches, you know, the next one will likely succeed. That was faulty logic from a statistics point of view. Just running the numbers, the cumulative probability of one or more catastrophic failures over a span of 10 missions is about 15%. Over 100 missions, it's 78%. So the chances over a longer number of more missions in the future was actually going to increase the chance that at least one of them was going to be catastrophic. So maybe that's why the shuttle program was ended. But that's kind of that's the difficulty of space travel, whether it's manned or unmanned. There's still a high probability of catastrophic failure that we can't
operational. And all my systems are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
TM, and yes, thank you, David, very much. I think because good Skynet presentation topics are hard to come by, I'm probably going to spend my next net or two talking about some of the causes of these space failures. And for anyone who would like to reflect more on David's comments and even get ahead of me, a great book. It's very long. It's the most riveting book you'll ever read about middle managers in a big bureaucracy. Is The Challenger Launch Decision by Diane Vaughn. It was extensively quoted by the Columbia Accident Investigation Board. Dr. Sally Ride liked it very much. It's really something to read about the cultural changes in NASA that helped lead to these accidents. That was the Challenger Launch Decision by Diane Vaughn. It's long, but if you are interested in it, libraries do have it, and David, it does follow from your comments, and is a very interesting book. Do we have anyone else with final comments before we close the net? This is our 73 round. Anyone with a final comment or thought or memory, please come now with your call signed phonetically, and I'll call on the order you check in. Final comments, please come now. All right, well, for whatever reason, my copy of the script does not have a postamble. That means I'm free to conclude the net however I like. My name is Tony, NT5TM, and I'd really like to thank you all for listening to the net. We had 27 hams participating tonight. All of our nets are as good as their participants, which is why all the nets on this repeater are so much fun. Before I completely wrap it up, Kelly K5KTX, you have been commenting on Echolink about the chances of donating to the Kosovo Observatory or Planetarium project. Do you have anything you can summarize just for everyone who's listening?
Thank you, Tony. This is K5KTX, and I'm happy to see some interest out there in that. My understanding is that the planetarium and observatory project is being funded by the government of Kosovo. That was the amendment to the budget that they approved earlier today. But they have a very large team that goes around to schools and to public places and have telescopes set up and do some public outreach. And so I do know that, I know that they've been working with the Charlie Bates Astronomy Project, and they are a nonprofit that's not sure exactly where they're based here in the U.S., but they've been helping the astronomy outreach of Kosovo. And when Fran Vera was here in the U.S., she was selling these beautiful patches, which I purchased one for about $35, and a friend of hers that lives in Arizona has been helping distribute those out. They did have a GoFundMe page, but I couldn't find that earlier. And so that's really all I know. I will be more than happy to send a message to Fran. I'm friends with her on Facebook, and ask her if they have a place where people can make donations, and I can get back to everybody. And that's all I've got. This is K5KTX.
Hey, thank you very much. I hope that everyone will be listening for that, and it does sound like a great chance to support astronomy education. Again, I was really struck by that because I took going to a planetarium completely for granted. It's just something you get to do if you want to. And they have laser shows and play Pink Floyd, and it's not a struggle, as that might be so for some people. It might be quite difficult. So thank you for bringing that to the net, and thank you everyone, again, all 27 hams who participated, and for all your comments. And thanks to the Dallas Amateur Radio Club for the use of this W5FC repeater. It's a friendly bunch of people, and I'm always glad to be your net control. This is NT5TM. This net is over, and the repeater is returned to amateur radio service. In about 5 minutes, the Afterglow Movie Net discussion is going to be getting started. Thank you. I'm clear.
ZYW, anybody out there tonight?
Okay, nothing heard. I've got to really drop off the repeater here. It's late. NT5TM.
WB5OZL, the Afterglow Net will begin in about 3 minutes, so you'll take a break, and we'll see you here in just a few. WB5OZL.
KT5ZYW, I don't know what's going on with the repeater, but there's been a lot of static tonight. I tried to comment on the Amset Astronomy Net tonight on my thoughts about the 2003 Challenger disaster. I was going to say, you know, what I felt and all that, but not sure if it's his radio not totally keying off or something going on with the weather or the repeater.
This KE5ICX. Yeah, you sound fine. The repeater has been clear all evening long. You might want to check your antenna, although your transmit's fine. KE5ICX.
Does anyone want to use the repeater before we begin our Afterglow Net? This is WB5OZL. I'm going to be net control this evening for the Afterglow Net. Tonight we have another fine movie, Battle of the Worlds, a 1961 Italian film. And I'm now going to call on Tom, KE5ICX, to give us a synopsis of this. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. This is KE5ICX, and I have sent my intelligence team out to get the very finest information on this film, which I call Code Team Wiki. Battle of the Worlds is an Italian film from 1961. It's directed by Antonio. The film stars Claude Rains, Bill Carter, and Maya Brent. Not pronouncing these actual names. They simplified them for me, thankfully, because Umberto Orsini plays Dr. Fred Steele with an extra E, and Eve Barnett with an extra T, played by Maya Brent, work together at an astronomical station on the Bucolic Island, on a Bucolic Island. Somebody's going to have to tell me what that is. Steele has just had his request for a transfer approved, and he and Eve look forward to leaving the island and getting married. Of course, that always happens. However, their budding romance is quickly put on hold as the station's scientists learn they must deal with a rogue planet, the outsider, that has entered the solar system, which is on a collision course for, anybody want to guess? Yes, planet Earth. The brilliant but cantankerous Professor Benson, played by Claude Rains, you know, the Invisible Man, just like in the song, living in an adjacent greenhouse with his dog Gideon, predicts that the outsider will not strike Earth, but will simply make a close pass. I think that could get you in trouble with HR. A prediction that no other scientist will endorse. Meanwhile, a military base on Mars encounters the stray planet on its approach to Earth. Commander Robert Cole and his wife Kathy quickly travel to the island outpost from Mars to help with the effort. Of course, they're like, 2 blocks away. The base scientists are elated when the outsider passes the Earth at a distance of 95,000 miles, just as Benson predicted. But Benson himself is stunned when the outsider takes up an orbit around Earth. He concludes that the outsider must be controlled by an alien intelligence, and he calls upon the World Scientific Governing Council to destroy it without delay. We come in peace, shoot to kill. Against Benson's wishes, an expedition is launched to make a close study of the new planet. As the exploratory spacecraft approach, a number of disc-shaped alien spaceships emerge from beneath the planet's surface, destroying the Earth's vessel. The phantom planet begins spiraling inward toward the Earth, creating hurricanes and storms. The beginning of the end appears to be near. Professor Benson discovers the alien ships are computer-controlled, and he devises a way to seize control of them from the outsider. Benson is given the opportunity to join the expedition to the outsider to learn something of its underground base. Meanwhile, a plan is hatched to launch an all-out attack against the planet in the hope that the massive nuclear strike will break the planet apart. I'm almost done. Benson's expedition discovers a race of humanoid creatures dead at the controls of their planet's spaceship. As the automated systems continue their work without purpose, but the expedition has overrun its allotted time, and the order is given to begin the attack. It is a race against time as members of the expedition try to get back to the ship before the nuclear warheads strike. Kathy is mortally wounded in an attempt to flee the outsider. Benson refuses to leave, insisting that life without scientific knowledge is not worth living. We all feel that way. He sees a way to communicate with the outsider and the program to leave, but it is too late. The warheads reach their target, and the outsider is successfully destroyed. I promise, it's almost in. As the exploratory ship returns to Earth, Commander Cole speaks Benson's epitaph. Quote, "Poor Benson. We knew him well." No, that's the wrong thing. "Poor Benson. If they'd opened up his chest, they would have only found a formula where his heart should have been." Sigh. The screen fades out on Benson's little dog waiting for him by the window. And thus ends Television Watch Battle of the Worlds from 1961. And a moment of silence for the little dog. I return this net to net control. This is KE5ICX. Sigh.
That just makes you want to gag. Thank you, Tom. This is Davey 50ZL. The dog's going to find a better master, I guarantee you. Somebody will take him, maybe that girl will, and he'll be a much happier dog, and we'll all be a lot happier. I know I was really happy when this movie was over. Okay, if anybody saw this movie and you want to check in and talk about it, I'd like to hear from you. Your call sign phonetically, your name, what city you're in, and did you see the movie? We're going to take a short hour first. Please come now.
Number Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, portable in Dallas. I did not see the movie. Apologies, no time. I'll just be listening. I'll have no comments to say. NT 5 p.m.
Tony, who did not see the movie. Okay, let's take regular check-ins now.
Kilo Golf 5, zombies need jobs. Frank in Flower Mound. And against my better judgment, I did see the movie. Internet control.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. I did see this, quote, movie, unquote.
Golf 5, Papa, Mike and Richardson. Yeah, I saw the movie, unfortunately.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra, Kilo, Berlin, Dallas. I did see the movie.
Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville, and I did see the movie.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom in Louisville. Yeah, me too.
Oh, looks like we set a new standard for lowness. Okay, we have KG5ZNJ Frank, N5BB Bill, KG5P Mike, KF5TSK Burl, KC5OZT Carolyn, KE5ICX, and everybody saw it. Okay, how about Echo Link? Please come now.
It's Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike November. James, I saw the movie. This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey J. I saw the film.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman. Yes, I saw the film.
Okay, we've got KG5PMN James, KG5BGWJ, and KF5PDS Billy. All three of you saw the movie. Any other check-ins of any kind, please come now.
G5 Echo Bravo, Bravo. David in Dallas. Yes, I saw it.
W5EVB David, who did see the movie. What a bunch of troopers. Okay, we're going to talk about the plot. Let's start with KG5ZNJ Frank. What did you think?
This is KG5ZNJ. Well, my first impression was, somebody must have found this movie at the garbage store. It looks like it was shot in Super 8, and you know, it was dubbed. It looked like, I guess it was an Italian movie, so kind of like a spaghetti western, I guess, but, you know, no Clint Eastwood, just little green men, I guess. You know, finely crafted from the finest Corinthian leathers, I guess. But you got basically like a 1950 style alien invasion, you know, and it pitted the big wigs, and they were led by the angry florist, and it was against the outsiders, and everybody was going around in flying toilet brush spaceships, I guess. And they beat the aliens with music, so I don't know. I didn't quite understand that. I mean, it was probably Helen Reddy or something. I don't know. I was kind of disappointed in it, to say the least, and I kind of didn't pay too much attention to it. It just was too difficult for my mind. But, you know, one thing that really bothered me was, you know, this movie's coming out in the end of the 50s, early 60s, and that's, you know, the flying saucers and the little green men, and I was really let down because I toughed out this movie because I wanted to see the little green men, and I didn't see any, and instead the aliens it looked like they were burnt lasagna, so that was a letdown, and, you know, they had a central computer that I think was a bong or something, maybe a lava lamp, and I don't know. That's all I got, man. KG5ZNJ, back to net control.
Burnt lasagna. I love it. We have another check-in, N5IMS. JJ, he saw it, but he will not comment, but we welcome him to the net. Okay, N5BB, Bill, tell us what you thought.
Okie doke, this is N5BB. Let's see. I guess the high-level plot was tiny bit reasonable. Some aliens. Well, of course, this is all imagined by the professor. There's no proof of any of this stuff. It's just he somehow comes up with a formula that makes no sense. You can't describe events like this with formulas. But that's what he seems to believe. But anyway, some alien civilization sends a whole planet. It's not really obvious how big it is, but they can land on it. It has gravity. And inside there they have, I don't know why they use something that large, but they have the dead creatures, which, and their computer, which is continuing to operate it in their, even after their death. So, I don't know, that I guess was the basic plot, but the rest of the plot was silly. The most silly thing was which is in some other science fiction movies, the 50s and 60s, but it was expanded here in a crazy way, was the stupid idea of the military people fighting the professor. This same theme or meme is in many other similar movies, where science is on one side and the military is on the other. On this one, it was even sillier because Professor Benson seemed to only care about knowledge. And depiction of him was really silly as far as a plot. He lived in his garden, didn't even come in and see everybody else. I don't know. I was trying to follow the war near the end of the movie, and I got lost several times. I didn't really understand what they were doing and why they were doing it, and what the reasons were, and so it seems to me like they just took various scenes and spliced them together without an overriding explanatory dialogue or anything else. So the plot was very disconnected except for the overlying the top plot, which was pretty obvious. Planet sent to us from outside our galaxy. Anyway, sad movie. If it had been done better, it would have been okay. I mean, Claude Rains acted in the movie, and he did what he was supposed to do. He was in his 70s. But it's kind of silly to think about this movie was made like 7 years between 2001 and Space Odyssey. And it's a assemblage of craziness compared to Stanley Kubrick's film. By the way, this is the second film by this particular director, in 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I was surprised by the fact that the following year, Claude Rains was in Lawrence of Arabia, which is a very sophisticated movie, and so many plot layers, and this must have been a really painful thing for him to act in because it was just so utterly stupid. Okay, KG5P. Mike, go ahead.
Hi, Brendan and it's KG5P. I don't really have anything to add to what everybody else has said. I think Claude Rains was just wasted in this movie. It wasn't his last movie, as you said, but it probably should have been. That professor that he played was just totally, it really wasn't credible. He just was too grouchy and to the point of even being abusive, and I don't know. They could have made something out of this movie. If you look at IMDb, I think the average rating on it is about a 6 out of 10, so that would mean that people really didn't hate it, but I'd have to probably give it about a 3 out of 10, because I think it was totally wasted. So back to that, KG5P.
Okay, KM5TSK Burl, go ahead.
This is KM5TSK. Well, the thing that bothered me the most was it seemed like the graphics was just, from 1961, I just really expected more. It would have been a better film if it was just animated and not really a live production. One of the things that the sets themselves that the aliens had computers, but Earth and Mars really didn't have a computer. Supposedly Earth Defense was this small panel and it had 9 switches, and that controlled the atomic missiles. The space suits, the mask that the astronauts were wearing, the closeness of where they were sitting, it was like, was this supposed to be a comedy? I don't have more to add, but one of the things that bothered me was Benson. Benson seemed like he was doing a commercial, If you could only go to university and get a degree in mathematics, you would understand music, and you would be able to take formulas and numbers and put them together and really do something. And the rest of you in the world are just stupid. K5TSK back to net.
Okay, KC5OZT Carolyn, go ahead. I pretty much agree with everybody, but the battle scene with the disc, it seemed to so easy to defeat them
that seemed odd, well, I guess this would go into characters, but, it looks like, and then the army wanting to defeat them, not give them a chance to, find out more about this, outsider, and, but, I guess the best, sweetest part was the little dog, but, and it's plotted. I guess that's the best way to describe it. The plot. H5OZT.
KU5ICX, your opinions, please.
I did check in on this net. This movie, I don't remember much about it. It was very exciting in ways that weren't really exciting. The storyline was convoluted. The acting was, well, we'll get to acting on the next round. Somehow or another, I think, I'm going to say this. This movie was thrown together. I think that a bunch of monkeys came about and typed up a script. And then these monkeys threw it up into the air, all of the little pieces of paper. They came back down together, and they were swept up and then handed to a director and actors to portray. I don't know who selected this movie. I'm sure it wasn't me. And I will probably never watch it again. I'm pretty sure of that. Now, on the good side, I'm thinking, is there anything on the good side? It had Claude Rains as the Invisible Man in it. He was in a song, too. Back to Net Control.
Okay. KG5PNM, James, go ahead.
This is KG5PMN, James over in Fort Worth. I saw the movie. I thought it was rather painful for me to watch, but at least I thought it had a beginning of the plot and to an ending of the plot. Seems like they had a lot of wasted space in there, taking up, especially toward the end when all the planet was starting to explode, and spent a lot of time just with fillers. I've got more when we get to the characters, I've got a little bit more. KG5PMN, back to the net.
WJ.
This is KG5BZW. Hold on, let me check something. Okay, KG5BZW. Yeah, plot-wise, well, I don't know. I'll go ahead and make my weird analogy, which probably doesn't make much sense, but whatever. So, you know how we have a fairly modern show of House MD, where we have the oh my gosh, I can say the word. Very smart and all-seeing, well, not really all-seeing, but, could see through any diagnosis and all that stuff. I know we're going back in time here, but it just reminded me of that. And although, House MD is a rather ridiculous show. This is, of course, 100,000, maybe, I don't know, times as worse. There's just so much that the professor somehow just could, was the only person to know and learn, and he called everybody, and he just knew everything, and we had no idea why, and he just insulted everybody, and just I don't know. It was only amusing to me in that it kind of reminded me of House, and I actually kind of like the show House, but otherwise, oh my gosh, this plot, I think Tom said it perfectly. It was just thrown together. Yeah, there's just a lot that just doesn't make sense, and having the professor explain everything just from his apparent brilliant mind just did not really help things. I mean, some basic things like, okay, this thing's got a gravity well, which that all these ships have trouble escaping. Well, that's not, that bad a problem, but the overacting when they were trying to accelerate away, I mean, it was like they were trying to pull 10 Gs or something, and this planet is, apparently you find out later on that you can destroy it with missiles. But wait a second, this is still 10, this is something that can make that much of has that much pull, and you're trying to destroy it with missiles? Where's that mass going? I don't know. And there's, you can pick apart every single scene that way. I don't have no idea what the hell they were thinking with the oscillators, although it was a concept that could kind of work out, but it was just very, convoluted and not really well thought out. KG5BZW, back to net.
Well, I'm thinking maybe it made more sense in Italian. That's what the problem is. Something is lost in translation. Okay, KFDS Billy, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that. Everything that was said, I agree with Bill that the overarching top plot made sense, but then they got lost in the details. And you're right, Brenda, it might have been due to some translational things too, because it seemed weird. Like some of the people were speaking, it looked like the mouths were moving to the English, and then other actors, it looks like they were dubbed over. So it's like, were half of them really speaking in English and the other half speaking in Italian? Because the Italian actors maybe didn't speak English, and so it just looked very strange. So to me, it was hard to follow in that respect. But towards the end, I agree. All the scenes, like the space scenes where they're cutting back and forth, it was just so abrupt and choppy. It made it hard to follow. And there were some times that I did tune out because I got disinterested, which made it harder to follow when I kind of like, oh yeah, I've got this movie on. So. I found that it was, like y'all were saying, convoluted and choppy and just not consistent in its delivery. So those are my thoughts about plot, and I'll have more comments for further rounds. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
David, W5EBB, your thoughts?
Yeah, the plot was very disjoint, and it did seem like, as others have said, it was cobbled together, spliced together of kind of unrelated sub-movies. The initial characters, the man and the woman on the beach, you expect them to be main characters, but they just sort of dissipate about halfway through. But that's okay, because once Claude Rains kind of comes into the picture, I thought the movie picked up marginally. In fact, the movie would have been much better if it was just comprised of the scenes with Claude Rains in it, but I'll defer that more to the characters. But his character, I think, was essential to perpetuate what you might call the significant part of the plot, which really seemed to be the dilemma faced when you encounter a mysterious advanced entity or force with an unknown motive, and you're not sure if it's benevolent or malevolent. I can't say words tonight either. Malevolent. Do you destroy it, study it, or try to control it? Maybe as a foreshadow by the professor's penchant for his plants and how he nurtured those, maybe he wanted to control this new powerful thing that they've just discovered. Now, I have to agree with, though, and he talks about in his mathematics and calculus that nobody else seems to know, it didn't show through his calculations that the outsider or adversary should have been able to achieve orbit. He was surprised by that. And indeed, it is difficult for an object to be captured into the orbit of another more massive object. And he may have been right, because when I play with this Create Your Own Solar System phone app, I cannot make a moon orbit around another object. I've tried hours and hours. It always smashes right into it. Might take a few minutes, but ultimately it does that. Anyway, W5EBB.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. No, I didn't like this very much. This falls into the same trap that so many movies take. It's like, let's get some really fakey spaceships, and we'll talk about aliens, and we'll call it a sci-fi movie. And they don't understand it. It really needs to have a plot and some decent characters and be plausible, and you need something besides some really cheesy props for people to want to watch it. Okay, let's go back to the top. We're going to talk about characterization now. KG5ZNJ, Frank.
This is KG5ZNJ. Well, character-wise, I think the only saving grace at all in this movie was there was some pretty good lines in it that were a little bit funny. You know, like, if this turns out to be a flash in the pan, I'll be the lightning rod. You know, that kind of stuff was kind of funny. And, you know, the calculus lines and all that, and if I had a handkerchief, I'd burst into tears. I got a few laughs out of that stuff. But what really gets me was you had these characters that were introduced at the beginning of the movie, and you got the idea that they'd be the heroes or the protagonists of the movie. You know, you had two women, one in the black dress, one in the white. You had at least three guys that were going to be the lead, I thought, and then that turned out to be a false start. And, you know, out of all this confusion, you know, I thought the Black Widow, the lady in black, was going to be some major key plot point in the movie. That never even worked out. And it all went back to the grouchy florist. He became the main guy, and he wanted to be in charge of the merry-go-round, and it was just a big, really nasty, big mess. And, yeah, I don't know. That's all I got. It was awful. KG5ZNJ, back to net control.
Okay, N5BB, Bill.
Good, this is N5BB. Well, without Claude Rains, this movie would have been zero. The trouble is they gave him very silly dialogue. I think he executed it quite well, but it was very silly. He was playing this caricature of a professor. So that's what bothered me most about it. It was all a caricature. It wasn't real at all. The dialogue had these silly phrases, as has already been said. He kept saying, "I have the formula." Like formulas were all the scientists cared about, which was a very oversimplification. And then, of course, Benson at the end, poor Benson, if he opened up his chest, they'd find a formula where a heart should have been. One of the characters moderately far through the movie, says, most things happen unexpectedly, even the apocalypse, which makes absolutely no sense. Most things happen unexpectedly. Another character says, looks like a kid's show, followed by some laughing. So as far as characterization goes, they gave him these stupid things to say that really silly dialogue. Some of the other silly dialogue they were saying are things, inversion at 35 degrees. No, invert at 35 degrees. That was critical. The engines were at 8 gammas, 10 gammas. No, all the way at 12 gammas. Several places, the gyroscopes were at maximum. I don't really know what they mean by the gyroscopes at the maximum. That's completely meaningless. The people in charge were the high command. Rather generic term. And you saw them on the screens far away. So they didn't have to do much more than be talking heads for a few seconds. They probably didn't have to pay them hardly anything. Dr. Cornfield with the glasses. Poor Dr. Cornfield tried to do his job, but everybody kind of ignored him, and Professor Benson initially acted like Dr. Cornfield was a complete doofus. Mrs. Collins, the lady up in front that was trying to serve the coffee, was initially heavily overacting. Her face was overly animated, etc., etc., etc. So, right early on in the movie, the character Eve is incredibly overexcited in the first few scenes. I think she kind of toned it down a little bit later, but the first couple of scenes, it's like she was trying to just overly emote on every single word she said. So, that's my idea of the characterization. In fact, BB.
Okay, KG5P Mike.
KG5P, oh my goodness. Well, okay, the professor seemed to have some equation that described the aliens by means of calculus or something. I never could quite figure out what calculus had to do with predicting what they were going to do next. But I don't know. I don't have anything else that anybody else has said. I'd just be repeating what everybody else has said. So I'll let it go at that. Looking forward here to hearing to find out what we have for next week. So back to you, Brenda, KG5P.
Okay, KF5PSK Burl.
This KF5PSK. Well, one of the things that really bothered me was that the men scientists wore white coats. The military was always in uniform, but the uniforms were different. Most of the time I saw the women in green, and I was trying to understand did that have a particular relationship to anything. I think one woman was in gray, but, the women were there to supply coffee. Supposedly this planet was in orbit around the Earth, but no changes in daylight or just no effect. And And, you know, the idea that, you know, you're going to steer a planet and, well, hey, well, I think we like that planet, so we'll just crash into it, you know. What, you know, someone would probably configure. Now, how much TNT would that be the equivalent to, you know, crashing two planets into one another? Might be a very big boom. K5TSK back to net.
All right, KC5OZT, Carolyn.
Well, one thing that was odd to me, especially toward the first, you have Eve and her boyfriend, and then the other couple. I mean, all working on these projects and stuff, and especially dangerous stuff. Going out into space together, that was very unusual back then. I mean, in fact, it didn't happen. You know, they kept they didn't have couples going together in space. And let me read that. And then all the calculus formulas that God, you know, if he was really that respected, why they didn't take him more seriously. But I know, like I say, probably the character he felt the most for was the poor little dog. KC5OZT.
All right, KE5ICX. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh no, it's my turn again. Well, what can I say? What can I add? Not much. But somebody called Vigilante 407 from October 22nd, 2002 had something to say, and maybe this person can explain it. Let's see here. She says, script doesn't let anybody. Claude's overacting makes you almost want to take a swing at the poor guy. I hope that he had a good time while he did this movie, since it was really his last film. Not quite. Because it really was fun to watch him in this movie. His performance as a cantankerous, pajama-wearing genius of a hermit who can answer any problem through calculus just didn't help things. And his character's attitude towards everything that wasn't math or himself made me wonder why his co-workers didn't lock him up in the room. Mathematicians, beware. Actually, that's pretty much what I got out of it too. Although he had nice pajamas, they looked pretty good. I think he had the silk ones. I couldn't tell. The picture was so blurry. I think they were blurry silk. Everything else, I have no idea. It didn't make any sense to me. Who picked this movie? KE5ICX.
I don't think it was me that picked it. KG5PMN James.
This is KG5PMN. I thought the acting was rather on the stiff side and kind of on the bland and stiff side. Claude Rains, he was playing a part that he'd played in an earlier film in 1960. He played a grumpy professor in another movie, and this Ultra film, I guess, film production company or whatever they are in Italy, had tried to release another film in 1960 that was a flop here in the U.S., according to what I've reading. And so when they produced this movie, they added Claude Rains into it to have a American actor character. Hopefully it'll get a little bit better ratings here in the U.S. As far as the English and the dub over for the Italian, we only had 2 English-speaking actors from what I could see in the movie, Claude Rains and the commander, which is I don't remember what the commander's name was, but commander of the ship. He was a British actor also. KG5PM in, back to the net.
At KG5BZWJ.
This is KG5BZW. Yeah, I thought I had something to say, but I really don't. I had there's, I mean, oh yeah, 2 things. One, unrelated characters. There was a HD version on YouTube, which I have HD adapted version, which I found a little bit better than the first recommended version on YouTube. It was all the first version. I just could not tolerate that blurriness, so I tried. Seeing that there had been at least one other version, I sought that one. So anyway, that's that. Come on, that. I don't know so much if this is really good. It's like characterization versus characters. Well, I did see that they had an interesting. It was actually, there was some mix. I like the fact that there was a few. I didn't know what exactly everybody did, but there was it seemed like a not entirely bad mix of characters. I had struggled to really care about anybody except for the professor. And poor Dr. Cornfield. Just why? It's like that. I guess that must have been an attempt at a joke or something to have somebody that the professor would always rag upon. I don't know. There's I can't really think of anything else because it's like the characters. I just really couldn't. I didn't. The one character I cared anything about, I really, it's the kind of guy you love to hate, and the others I just didn't really care one way or the other, except for the dog. The dog was cute. KG5BTW.
KF5PDS, Philly.
Yeah, with regards to the characters, the professor, he was just so grumpy all the time. It's like, I just, wished he would have played it a little with more facets than just being the grumpy old professor every single scene. But that was the only good acting in the whole film was Claude Rains, but I know he was there to be the box office draw, to have a name actor of the period, that was famous to be in the film. So he was one redeeming factor, but the writing of the part just didn't give him a lot to work with. So it's always sad to see really good actors fall prey to really bad writing. So, but I did like the garden idea of painting your pots with chalk, having slate pots so that you can write mathematical formulas on them. Next time I get a garden together, that might be a welcome addition to my garden. I just thought that was really neat. It's like, but to me, you should have an office with a chalkboard with all kinds of formulas written all over it. If he was that formulaically driven, but I found it was kind of a sad commentary of the society because I'm like, here's a society that can go to space, but none of the young people recognized calculus because he was glad. He said, I'm glad that, that you recognize it, meaning one of the younger generation. And I was like, what kind of society is that? I guess that, they programmed everything in so they don't have to know it. I'm just like, how do you get to be a spacefaring society and you don't know calculus? So I found that was kind of interesting, and it's like, what a sad world if, you don't know the mathematics. But I thought that was interesting, that he always went to mathematics for his justifications and was very upset with himself that he missed something. And then all the other characters, I don't know, seemed pretty superficial. There wasn't a lot of meat to any of the characters at all, and again, that was due to the writing, I'm sure. But other than that, I really didn't find anything character-wise that really caught my attention. So always good to see Claude Rains and stuff. But other than that, I really don't. And of course, the dog, he was just wonderful. They always say it's always hard to act with children and animals. And certainly, with the dog, he was a cute addition, and it was sad at the end. So anyway, I really nothing else leaps to mind, so I'm going to return it to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
And W5EBB. Go ahead, David.
Well, I did like the professor, and that's the only one I'll talk about. He was, from his look, he was kind of a crisper blend of Danny Thomas and Truman Capote. And from his demeanor and how he delivered his lines, something between Peter Sellers from Dr. Strangelove, who was definitely over the top. So, Claude Rains, I didn't think he was over the top, especially compared to a character like Peter Sellers in Dr. Strangelove, but also with a dash of Ian McDiarmid, the Emperor from Return of the Jedi. But yeah, Lawrence of Arabia was Claude Rains' next movie. So I wonder if the casting person for Lawrence of Arabia saw Claude Rains in this movie and thought, he's our guy. But it is stupefying how disparate the quality and caliber and role and movie was between those two movies. But okay, no, I will mention one other character. I'm extrapolating here, but I think the dog with the coif was an outsider, a spy on an early expeditionary force, maybe a reconnaissance mission, specifically to telepathically imprint the professor with a sense of fascination and empathy for the outsiders soon to arrive. And that's why that's the last character you see in the movie is the dog. Just trying to tie it all together here. W5EBB.
Okay, do we have any additional check-ins? Please come now. Okay, we're going to go around again. We're going to talk about the stellar special effects. KG5ZNJ, Frank.
KG5ZNJ. Oh, well, they had the typical space suits that, I don't know, they must have went to the thrift store or something to get all that stuff. And, just like I said, the spaceships to me look like flying toilet brushes. So that somebody set the back end of them on fire and just kind of probably flew them across the room on a string or something. So, yeah, pretty amazing stuff there. Not George Lucas, that's for sure. I don't know. I guess the flying saucers weren't that bad. I mean, at least they didn't look like car hubcaps, so that's I got to give some credit for that. That would have been something that I'd be hard pressed to make a better effect than that out of scrap in my garage. So I'll give them a little credit for that, but the bar is pretty low. That's about it. KG5ZNJ. Back to net control.
N5BB. Go ahead, Bill.
This is N5BB. Well, the spaceships and saucers were just about average for late 50s, early 60s movies. The spacecraft, well, you notice the alien spacecraft, you never see any mode of operation. The saucers just kind of float around and zoom around on their own. There was no real thought. I mean, no description of why they were saucer-shaped. They weren't. Why saucer? The Earth spacecraft were kind of weirdly shaped. They had fire coming out the back. Of course, it didn't look like normal rocket propulsion, but many of the other shots back then were the same thing. They set up a model. They had a little fire coming out, flames coming out the back, and they thought it looked realistic, which of course it did not. But that didn't stop them. Did you know they had a prop? They had a teletype machine. He went and zipped off a encrypted telegram. That was Fred Steele, Eve's boyfriend, early on. And did you know when they were talking about how fast a teletype could run, it would run at 1,000 words per minute. Well, it looked like a mechanical teletype to me, and they normally ran as fast as 100 words per minute. So that teletype ran 10 times faster than any other teletype we know about, which I thought was interesting. Let's see, what else? I already mentioned the gyroscopes running at maximum. I'm not sure what they were maximizing, but I thought that was funny. And the inversion at 35 degrees, special effects. As the electronic telescope, which I thought was an interesting name, the electronic telescope, as it raised up, it came up, it went up into the air. As it did, you heard the Morse code letters V, 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 da-da-da-da, 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 for no reason. Special effects. They had oscillators. Not described why or anything, but they just found some oscillators to try to scare away the alien ships. For no reason at all. As somebody else noted, that the little control box with the, whatever it was, 6 or 8 buttons on it to do everything in the world, that was rather simple. There weren't a lot of other special effects except for the televisions. They had televisions. They had remote viewing of the members of the council or whatever, the high command. And I thought that part was actually done rather well. That's one of the few things that did seem like it was kind of modernistic. That's all I got. Inside BB.
Hey, KG5P, Mike. Thank you, Leftist. KF5, Pearl.
This is KF5 TSK. Well, I would say the graphics, themselves was just poor. Everything was orange. Supposedly you could see fire in outer space. The spaceships would actually, flip and turn and do all kinds of wild things like they were just driving on the street. That's all I've got. KF5 TSK, back to net.
Okay, KC5OZT, Carolyn. Well, I have to admit the spaceship seems sort of odd. In fact, those two, they looked a little familiar. I just wonder if we've seen them in another movie. But, then, yeah, I noticed that about the V's as the telescope opened up, and you wonder why, okay, if they've got a base on Mars, it's pretty, must be pretty advanced. Some of the, well, what would you say, hardware, rockets and stuff on Earth, didn't seem as advanced as what must have been on Mars, they mentioned, but anyway, I think that's about all I can think of. KC5OZT. Okay, KE5ICX, Tom.
Oh, jeez, it's my turn again. Let's see, the special effects. Not so special, although pretty much on par with what you saw in the 50s. I like some of the scenes they had inside the spacecraft flying saucer thingy. That was pretty cool, with lots of little pipes running everywhere. I'm looking at a picture of it right now, including somebody who went to the incredible efforts to stitch together an entire set look of this thing. So apparently there are people that actually have watched this film and gone back and actually tried to enhance it. That is disturbing on so many levels. The spacesuits were fairly convincing, although kind of 1950-ish type stuff. We had the typical flight helmets that you get in, jet aircraft and that, with oxygen and all that stuff. It was okay. The spacecraft, flying saucers, splash, all that other stuff looked fairly good from a standpoint that it visually was interesting, not necessarily convincing, because it was not that. So those things were good, and then I'm going to go ahead and insert music. To be honest with you, the best part of this movie was the music, kind of jazzy scores here and there, making the thing work. It actually had something going for it. There are times when it was visually interesting, the lighting was good. It is a color film, although I saw it in like two-tone monochrome. Can you have monochromic sound? I guess that's monophonic then. But it had monochromic and monophonic, so it was onic perfectly. I would think if they had a real budget, they might have been able to do a little more with it. I would have liked to have seen it in a little better color since it was a color film. It does remove something from the film when they are trying to be creative and chromatic. They're trying to do something with color, and I've only got 2 of the 3 colors, and everything is brown. So, I don't know. Overall, who decided on this movie? I want to talk to this person. KE5ICX.
Yeah, so do I. KC5PNM, James.
This is KG5PMN. I don't know what else I can add to it, really. The special effects are basically what we see in all these early late 50s, early 60s movies, including the rescue scene when the one spaceship, the supply ship, crashes into the outsider. The rescue was what we'd watched earlier, was the two guys floating through space into the other ship, and all the scenes just were typical of things that are continually occurring. KG5PMN.
KC5OZT, I don't have a check by your name. Did I skip your last turn or not?
On the props and stuff? No, I talked. Talked on him. KC5OZT.
Okay, I try to keep myself straight by checking when everybody talks, and of course I can't remember anything. I have to write things down, but I forgot to check you off, so I apologize. Okay, KG5BZWJ.
This is KG5BZW. I think it's at that time the net that everybody starts getting confused. Okay, well, three things. Yeah, we're talking about special effects here, so I'm not sure if Carolyn, I don't know. Anyway, my thoughts. There wasn't really, in terms of the real, the practical effects and all, I can't think that there being that. I mean, yeah, there were some things that were kind of cool that weren't really convincing, but, visually appealing. I actually like the not really, the things that I noticed that I want to talk about are not really special effects, but just more, costumes. I guess costume is kind of special effect, but still, the different colored helmets for all the characters. I don't know. Maybe that's more of a standard thing that happens in sci-fi, these sci-fi stories or what, but I don't know. I liked it. It kind of it's like, oh, now there's that character and that character, and yeah, okay, whatever. Not much to say about that, but I liked it. Let me shut. I was really more. What I really wanted to say though was more. The most interesting thing I think happened in terms of sets and location was really the first the first sequence, just a little bit after the first sequence. Although the sea and everything, which had no relevance to the story whatsoever, that was kind of cool. The intro was actually filmed. It was an interesting. I thought it was an interesting beginning, but like I said, not relevant to the whole picture. I was more curious about the apparent observatories. I was trying to figure out where that was or what those were. If that was a real telescope observatory up somewhere in the mountains of Italy or somewhere or not, I couldn't really find it on IMDb, but I thought it was an interesting and good choice. There's not much to say. I mean, that hasn't already been said about the equipment and locations. The forum, or not the international when the professor was talking to all these heads of state or whatever, not heads of state, just heads of whatever. I like that scene was That was interesting. That was also an interesting thing. I guess that was the third thing I wanted to say. I said it really poorly, so whatever. But I can't think of anything else. KG5BGW.
Okay, KF5PDS, Philly.
Yeah, with low budget foreign films, they always seem a little bit behind the times with the development of special effects. Like, I'm sure movies in the early 60s that were produced in America had a lot higher production value and a lot fancier special effects because they could have a larger budget. So, yeah, to me this had very much a DIY feel to it, like they just had to come up with stuff themselves because they didn't have a large budget to work with. So I thought that the bringing in of stuff, it did kind of seem like they went through a warehouse and was like, anything that looks scientific, let's get it, and so they had, different kinds of things that looked sciencey and cool, and, even if it didn't serve a purpose, it was there to kind of add to the atmosphere of the science fiction film. And I liked the TV room. I thought that was one of the coolest things about it. That had kind of an artsy quality to it. When the film first started, with the jazzy music and showing the woman walking to the beach, to me that had kind of an art house feel to it. But then, of course, once it got into the film, the rest of it, wasn't, I guess, slick enough to be art house. But there were moments, where it kind of felt like an art film. And that moment in the TV room when Claude Rains is talking to all of them and all the different style TVs, it had almost kind of a steampunky kind of feel to it, which I thought was really kind of cool. But the special effects with the spaceships I did not like. That orange color was just unnatural, and I think that was where the film kind of fell down. Again, if they'd had a higher budget, they could have had better animation techniques, but that kind of, celluloid animation, of course, it can be cool if it's done right, but when it looked just like the little discs were just like a stencil because all the ships moved together. And so it was like they were just like on one cutout and just painted on one slide, and like it was just slid across the camera so that they all moved in unison one way and then all moved in unison another way. So it was very simply done. But I just didn't care for that orange color. I thought that they could have done a lot better if they would have colored it differently or made it more realistically colored. I did like the disc. That was a very typical saucer shape, so some of the close-up discs I thought was pretty, right on with the times of the late 50s, early 60s, disc-shaped alien saucer. So that was pretty trademark. But other than that, nothing really stood out as remarkable to me. Nothing else that anybody else has mentioned. I thought the teletype was really cool, too. But nothing else leaps to mind, so I'll return it to you. This is KF5 PDS, back to net.
W5EBB David.
Carolyn mentioned earlier is I think we've seen these spaceships before, and maybe it was Starship Invasions, that the movie with Christopher Lee. Those spaceships kind of upside down aluminum pie plate look. And the way they darted around was reminiscent of that movie, to me at least. The rocket ships were just poorly done. And the one that stuck out for me was the EVA, when the two astronauts from one ship had to escape and get to the other spaceship. And you see a scene where these little specks, which were the astronauts, I guess, darting in different directions. And then the next time you see them, they're safely aboard the ship that they were trying to board. Miraculous. Now, I thought that the special effect that was the best to me was inside of the Outsiders space rock ship. It was actually reminiscent of alien set designs. Glistening, biomechanical, lots of tubes, not quite Necronomicon. Yeah, that's the H.R. Geiger, one of his famous books. But certainly hints of it. Unsettling, disturbing, and, summarily moist. W5EBB.
Okay, it's almost midnight. Let's put this to bed. Anybody have anything they just can't avoid saying and want to finish up? Till now. Okay, KE5ICX, what treat have you lined up for next week?
Thank you, Miss Brenda. And thankfully, not like that jerk who came up with this movie, Battle of the Worlds, I've picked a fine film. This film has to do with Captain Christopher Pike on a secret mission. Time traveling, no less, in the 1966 spectacular film Dimension 5 next week. So if you'd like to be a part of the email list, you can send an email to me at KE5ICX, KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com. Say, I want to be part of the list, or go to the Afterglow movie Facebook page, which is Afterglow, one word, movie, the second word, Afterglow movie. Say you would like to be a part of it. You can get the information there. I'll provide you with the fine, super secret public domain link. Dimension from 1966 with Captain Christopher Pike. This is KE5ICX.
Okay, we had 13 check-ins tonight. Thanks for everybody who participated and gave us your insight onto this. We're going to close the net now. This is WB5OZL Clear.
Brenda, K5ICX and 5BB. Hey, Tom, got a question for you.
Oh, go ahead, Bill. And it isn't actually Captain Christopher Pike, but it could be.
I was wondering about that. Is it the same actor?
Yeah, it's Jeffrey Hunter. It actually looks like it could be interesting. I didn't watch it. I did watch the first 4 minutes of it. I think it could be a lot of fun.
Think about Christopher Pike. All I can think about is that that little chamber they moved him around in, with his face damaged and his mouth kind of half open, and that zombie look.
Hey, here's the cool part is that Captain Pike, well, now we've had Pike reemerge in the movies, and now he emerges and is back in Star Trek Discovery. And whoever this guy is who's playing Captain Christopher Pike, he does a pretty good job of the Jeffrey Hunter portrayal, although I think he does a cooler version of Jeffrey Hunter's version. So, looking inside of a mirror or something. Oh, they did that last season. Never mind. Actually, it's pretty good. I've enjoyed him. He is the commander of Discovery, And so far, pretty good. I liked it. Only had a Klingon episode this week. I'm not a huge Klingon episode guy.
How is that new one distributed?
You have to go to CBS On Demand if you're interested. Go there and you can sign up. And I don't know how much it is right now, but you can sign up. Now the thing about Discovery is it's fed you each week. It's not like Netflix where they give you all the episodes at one time. So you have to decide. You can either wait, go ahead and wait for 2 months. I think there's 15 episodes. Wait 2 months. I think we're into episode 3. And then watch them all on a binge, or you're just going to have to put up with a 5, 10, 15, 3-month subscription, your choice.
Okay, Inside BB. Wow. I've never even heard of CBS On Demand. There is far too much out there to possibly be viewed, even if you had several TVs running simultaneously 24/7. And I'm a busy person and try to keep up with the news and science and other things. And I am way behind on